A relationship is the one thing where in the beginning it's the easiest. You know why? Because there's far less to communicate. That's why. Everything's great. It's like, whatever, you leave your towel on the floor every once in a while. It's not that bad. That's not that big of a deal. And then 6 years later, it's like, oh my goodness, the towel's on the floor again. Oh my.
A fight to me is like you're like attacking each other versus we're having a disagreement that we want to get back on the same page. And with Emilia, because her emotional regulation is so good, we've never yelled or anything.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was episode number 1339, What's Your Obsession? Today, for episode number 1340, the two most important things for a healthy relationship. I'm going to slide my window shut a little bit because there's a crow barking at me outside. Can you hear the crow?
I can hear the birds, yes. I will hold space for you, Kev.
No, you're good. We have a giant crow that likes to visit outside, and he's vocal.
He's vocal.
He speaks.
He's trying to get a plug on the show.
I'll get to that at the end. For 30% off of all your crow products, visit thecrowoutside.com. So Alan and I did an episode very similar to this. Long before we were this hyper-conscious, this next level, this mature, whether or not you can tell on this episode, I don't know. We did an episode very similar to one we're going to do today. But it wasn't necessarily based on experience. It wasn't necessarily based on study. I think it was based on what we thought was common sense, but we didn't really understand the practice of that common sense. So the two most important things for a healthy relationship. One of the things you'll see very often is if you follow a relationship page or an intimacy page is people will ask questions of, hey, my partner doesn't do blank. How do I get them to do blank? Right? I'd love for my partner to take the trash out. I'd love for my partner to be more intimate. I'd love for my partner to ask me how my day went. And one of the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to that is, have you ever communicated with your partner that that's bothering you? No. Oh, okay. Well, there's your problem. There's problem number one. Most people aren't mind readers, unfortunately. So if you do not communicate what the struggle is, the struggle will probably persist until you do communicate it. So number one, communication. You want to do number two?
Well, I think it's story time.
Tell it.
Once upon a time, Kevin comes over to my house. And this is still in the early entrepreneurial journey when I went from living in Worcester to living back with my mother in the hometown that Kevin and I grew up in. He drives up and it's drives down. But you know what I'm saying.
I know.
You let me tell the story?
Yeah, my bad.
Okay. So he drives down the driveway. He gets to the house. Nice summer day. I was very blessed to have lived on a large pond, small lake, Kev. Mm-hmm. Beautiful day. We go down into the studio, a.k.a. my mother's basement at the time. And we set up on a pool table. I had a pool table down there, and you set up your mics. This is the very early days. This is when we first started podcasting. So this must be it was going to be probably episode 15 or something. And Kev is high at the time. So he had smoked the devil's lettuce, as you call it.
How dare you How dare you call me out? Yeah, I was like, I don't know. Let's see what happens.
Yep. Let's see what happens. And that was back when we were using those terrible microphones, those with the shield. There's like a Captain America shield in front of them or whatever. Yeah. And so anyways, we sit down and we're like, let's talk about relationships. Let's do this thing. And Kevin asked me a question. He says, right at the beginning of the episode, what is the most important indicator, the most important thing in an intimate relationship? And I said, without hesitation, hands down, trust. You have to have trust. And he said, I disagree. And then we had a passionate debate about trust versus communication. And then by the end, I think we realized, number one, that episode was garbage.
Yeah, we burn it.
Yeah, burn it, kill it.
Nobody can see this. Yeah.
And number two, it's both. And they feed each other. In other words, if you communicate effectively and consistently, you're going to build trust. And if you don't have trust it's going to be very hard to communicate effectively. And so imagine a partner that you cannot trust at all. You can't trust what they say. How are you going to be able to communicate well? We did a Relationship Talks virtual event last week, and we called it the Triad of Disaster. Kev?
The Triad?
Triad of Disaster.
What is that?
The danger zone. What?
What is that?
The Triad of Disaster.
What is a triad you speak of?
The the name of this event was the 3 biggest risks to your relationship failing. In other words, everyone out there listening right now, I did this at the event. If you cannot connect at least one of these 3 things to the reason why a breakup happened, I would be surprised. Okay, here we go. Triad of Disaster. Number 1, bottom left of the triangle, is arrogance. Okay, arrogance. Let me define arrogance. Arrogance is high confidence with low competence. So I usually define arrogance as, remember when I first got my license, I thought I was a really competent driver, and I ended up, unfortunately, doing this 360 across someone's lawn. I'm lucky I was okay, but I was going too fast and I was too incompetent, but I had high confidence and low competence, okay? So I was arrogant, and luckily it didn't hurt me. So that's number 1, arrogance. Number 2 is dishonesty. Anytime you've ever been lied to, now it's like, what can I trust? I don't know if I can trust this person. Okay, you lie about that. What else do you lie about? That kind of thing. We've all been there, and we've probably been on both ends of this. And then the third one is immaturity. People who are attention-seeking, people who are still little kids deep down, people who think it's all about them and they're selfish, people who can't handle their own emotions and kind of throw hissy fits or temper tantrums, or they lose their temper easily, that kind of thing. So anyways, by the end of the event, we had something called the Triad of Abundance, and it's really just the opposite of those 3. So the opposite of arrogance is humility. The opposite of dishonesty is trust. And the opposite of immaturity, I think, is ownership. The ability to take ownership. If you want to know if someone's immature, they can't take ownership for anything. Nothing's their fault. Our team, the NLU team, amazing. We all just take ownership. Like, yeah, my bad. Yeah, that's on me. You're right. I jeffed it. There's a reason we have that saying, I jeffed it. We say that all the time, jeffing forward. And you'll notice if someone's immature, they can't take ownership. They are attention-seeking, and really deep down, they just don't believe in themselves. But anyways, I digress. Trust and communication. Trust is like Jenga. If Kevin and I have a relationship, business relationship, and I take pieces out of the bottom of the Jenga tower that are necessary. If you've ever played Jenga, the goal is to take pieces out and put them on the top, but don't take pieces out that are going to make the tower fall. If I take a piece out that makes the tower fall, Kevin can't trust me anymore, and now we can't be business partners. Or I have to rebuild the whole tower from scratch, which, again, is possible, but it's very challenging. And so that's the frame that I would set for today, and that's how the cookie crumbles.
I had somebody ask me this. This was a while ago. This person had a serious relationship, and their partner hadn't cheated or anything like that, but they were participating in what would be probably classified as sketchy behavior. I'll just leave it at that. It wasn't anything too much, but it's like, that's probably across the line of what should be based on the communication that you've had together as a couple. And he said, what do I do? And I said, one of 2 things. You either understand that for the foreseeable future, you and your partner understand that for a while, and I'm talking months and maybe a year, years, you're going to have trust issues. You're going to have to communicate that with that person. Right now, what you're basically saying is like, I want to work through this. And I said, 100%, I think that's great. But I think you need to understand, and you need to be very honest with this person that this is going to be a really, really, really challenging situation to work through. And I think you just need to communicate. And almost in a weird way, you need to communicate how much more that person needs to communicate in order for you to rebuild the trust. And I said, it's going to suck. That's the advice I'm going to give you. It's going to suck, but are you willing to sign up for that? Because that's the only way you're going to get your relationship back. It's not just going to happen. And it's definitely not going to happen easily. because I've talked about this. I've been emotionally cheated on. Alan laughs every time I tell the story, but I've been not in a bad way. I've been emotionally cheated on. I won't go into the details, but I remember what it was like.
I can't help it, man. That's such a brutal rock bottom
it's not
moment.
Great. It's
not a good moment.
It explains where my self-worth was at the time. It is what it is. I remember what it was like every time my partner's phone would go off, I'd get triggered. And I told this person the same thing. I said, look, I've been through this. I know what it's going to take. It's going to suck. Make sure it's worth it. Make sure it's worth it to you. Here's the interesting thing.
You've come a long way, my friend.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
You've come a long way.
Here's the interesting thing, and this is why I wanted to do this episode. One of the biggest things that our community struggles with is expressing their truth. For those listening, Alan is hiding his mouth behind the microphone and turning into a red tomato.
I am. My face is all red. That's got to be in some sort of comedy skit, like
it was
rock bottom relationship moment.
It was.
Yeah,
it was.
Okay. And the way you tell it is hilarious.
For
too,
context, one of my past partners and I got into an argument, and I was like, I'm done. And she's like, yeah, I'm out. She's like, yeah, okay, fine, be done. And I was like, I'm leaving right now. I'm leaving. I'm getting my stuff and I'm leaving. And she said, if you leave here, we're done. And I was like, that's what I'm saying. I'm done. So I walk out the back door. I walk through the yard up into my car. I open the door and I'm like, oh, F this. This is awesome. I'm out of here. And then I sat there for a second. And I was like, nope. Closed the door, walked back downstairs with my tail tucked between my legs. And yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't a good look. But that's a challenging thing, is when your self-worth, you're almost willing to sift through the lack of trust if your self-worth isn't high. Because if you don't believe you can get more, why would you try? Yeah. And that's genuinely where I was at the time. So ultimate point here, now that that's off the table. One of the biggest challenges, you and I have the same thing, but many people in the community expressing your truth. This is why communication is so important. Because imagine if you felt either safe enough, or you felt confident enough, or you had practiced it enough where you could say, hey, babe, when you do blank, it makes me feel blank way. Simple. That's a level of communication that if you can get there, just as an example, yesterday, well, if you're listening to this, it wasn't yesterday, but as of recording this, yesterday on Monday, Taryn had time in the morning, so she decided she was going to do laundry. And she had to take one of the cats to the vet, so it was a whole thing. So she knocks on the door, and she knows Monday's recording day. So he knocks on the door and says, hey, babe, can you switch over the laundry for me? And I was like, I am enraged right now. And that's my joke. We joke about that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and she's like, I know. And I said, I just wish you would just bring me into your plans a little bit more so I can kind of plan accordingly. And she's like, I know. I thought of it last minute. I said, you're good. No worries. Go do your thing. I'll take care of it. But it's not the first time we've had that conversation. We've talked about that before. And that's why she was so like, yeah, I know. I jeffed. But that was the first time that ever happened. It was such a hard conversation. She came in the office and I was like, hey, babe, can I have a vulnerable share? And she's like, yeah, of course. And I said, sometimes it doesn't feel like you value the privacy of my office. Like, I need you to imagine that when the door is closed, I'm not here. Sometimes, right? Because that means I'm busy and I'm getting taken out of flow, and it's a whole thing. I know it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but it's a whole thing. And that was a very hard conversation to have the first time. That was brutal. Sure. But now I don't have to pocket it every time. I don't have to build resentment. I don't have to pretend it's not bothering me. I really think one of the things that I definitely have, like, a hero complex in relationships, for sure, where it's like, I'll just shoulder the weight. It doesn't matter. My needs aren't important. That's something I've worked through for a long time. But I think it's because I was more afraid of the conflict of communication than suffering internally. And I think that's probably why, to me, communication is so important. Because I think for me, I mean, in my relationship, I have zero trust issues. I'm not worried about anything. But I do know that without proper communication, this whole thing can burn to the ground. Anything can. You and I can. This business can if we don't communicate, right? Like, I really think it's, okay, think of it this way. Lack of sex is a problem. Has it been communicated about? No. There's step one, right? Where we don't agree on finances. Okay, has it been communicated about? No, that's step one. It's almost like without communication, the problem will be the end.
What do you guys call a vulnerable share? You call it a hedgehog? Vulnerable share?
Hedgehog. Yeah, that's hedgehog. Not from us. That's from, I believe, Dr. Emily Nagoski. We got that from.
Like I got a little hedgehog?
Got a little hedgehog. Yeah, it sounds
like a vulnerable share. Yeah, it sounds cute instead of
less intimidating than like sit down so I can hit you with the truth.
What?
Yeah. Do you mean?
Or we need to talk.
Yeah.
What
I don't
about
think so.
Exactly?
I don't think so. Do we?
Yeah. Do we? I don't think we need to talk.
Well, what?
You're funny.
What's going on, guys? My name is Austin, and I've been working with Kevin for a few months now. If there's one thing that I find super valuable is his expertise on how to position the podcast to the right audience and fit the content into the overall business plan. And frankly, when we work together, he challenges me a lot. There were some tough conversations that he initiated with me so that I can really grow in the business. Besides the coaching part, the editing team does amazing work with editing and show notes and staying on top of all communications. Overall, my experience working with Kevin has really been top-notch.
Last night I was in the gym, and Emilia and I have been working out together for basically our entire relationship. We used to do really serious workouts. It makes it sound like we're not doing serious workouts anymore. But we used to do really serious workouts at a gym called Impact Fitness, bodybuilder gym, one of the best gyms I've ever been to, honestly. It's just excellent. And she would spot me, and I would spot her. Recently, I've gotten into a place where I'm raising my standards in fitness again. Back to maybe even in some ways better than my old best. Yeah, definitely. The compound effect of that has definitely not shown itself yet. But the point that I'm making here is that I didn't really communicate to her that I've been doing that inside of myself. You and I have been looking at a lot of old photos and videos and different things, and it's just like, oh wow, we've really let our standards drop quite a bit. And now because we're older, we need to work even harder and even smarter than we used to. Maybe not harder, but definitely smarter. And so anyways, last night, I don't like to talk in the gym. We both have AirPods in, they're noise canceling, and we're just off to the races. And we go to war together. We do great. And I'm so impressed. She's come way up. You know, she's teaching me a little bit of Muay Thai, and she's the teacher in that. When it comes to fitness and weight training, I'm the teacher. And occasionally it flips, but not really. So anyways, we're in the gym, and I need a spot. And my wrist placement is off because on the last episode I talked about my rib issue. We're just going through Alan's gym issues. Right, so my left rib popped out a little bit. Now I'm a little off center, so now my elbow is compensating. It's a whole thing. Here's my point. I have this hat on because I go to war in the gym, and I like to have my hat down low. And she is giving me feedback, like, and if you're on YouTube, you can see I am pointing my fingers of like, you're good to go, okay? But I can't see it because my hat is down. And so she has to put that like above to where I can actually see it while I'm lifting. And so I'm sitting there holding the weight, waiting for confirmation that my wrists are good, you know? And so anyways, I wasn't super unkind, but I had a little bit of a frustrating moment while in the gym that she was a little upset about. So we're on the ride home, and I was like, are you good? Like, is everything okay? Like, you seem off. And she's like, no, I'm good. And I'm like, probably not. I'm like, okay, Alan, let me look at the Rolodex. It's like, yeah, you were probably a little bit of a dick back there, Alan. Humble moment. And so I said, you know, was I too hard on you? Was I a little too hard on you in the gym? She said, well, not really too hard, but I think it was a little unfair of you to expect me to know exactly how to spot you and exactly what you're looking for through sign language. In other words, just take your AirPod out and please communicate so I can be a better team. You know, totally understandable. And by the end of the conversation, it was like 5 minutes. I was like, babe, you're absolutely right. That was unfair. It was unfair, man. You know, I'm frustrated with myself. And I told her that. I said, I'm more upset with me than I am with you. I'm frustrated with my own standards dropping. And I think I would like to get to a place where you and I are more consistently doing effective workouts together to where we're spotting each other. Because she never really learned how to spot super well because she's fairly new to weight training. And, you don't want to touch the weight unless you really need to touch it. There's like a whole etiquette around gym training that I'm trying to like jump her up this learning curve on, and I'm doing it through sign language, and it's just not fair. And it's at the end of the day. And again, here's my point. I had to communicate vulnerably in order to get her to share vulnerably how she felt so that I could say, listen, and take ownership and say, listen, that's on me. I'm not upset with you. I'd say maybe 5% of my frustration is with you. Most of it is with me. And next time I'll take my AirPods out and actually talk to you. You know? And so we solved the problem. But what would have happened had I not communicated effectively and had we not had great trust built is, and had I not been able to trust that she's actually going to be truthful with me, we would have just buried that. Mm. And then it would have happened again and again and again and again and again. And then eventually the Jenga tower would have fallen. And so you gotta communicate these little bugs in the garden when they're small. Otherwise, eventually the whole infestation is going to take the garden. You know, and that's what check-ins are really good for as well.
It's interesting. I now have a new reference. You know, and you've said this before, and a lot of people say it, like we've never fought. Mm-hmm. I think a good frame for that is there's a large difference between fighting and having conflict.
I would call it a rumble. Brene Brown uses rumble in Dare to Lead is her book. Yeah. A rumble is kind of like a vulnerable disagreement. That disagreement, debate, passionate discussion. A fight to me, and again, it is where you draw the line. A fight to me is like you're like attacking each other versus we're having a disagreement that we want to get back on the same page. And with Emilia, because her emotional regulation is so good, we've never yelled or anything, which for me is like
we did the episode on the remember we did the episode on the Richter scale a while ago about like what your normal is.
Right. My mom and stepdad used to fight a lot, and really fight, you know, and they would yell and all that. So for me, we've never done any of that, you know. But anyways, continue. What was your?
I like the frame of, because I think what a lot of people are afraid of is the conflict, the potential conflict in the discomfort. It's almost like, just as an example, my internal thought process when I want to communicate frustration, let's just say with you being late, that's been a running thing of, we've just shared that because it's, the listeners can understand it. Mm-hmm. I'm nervous you're going to say something back more than anything. Not you, but the collective you.
Yeah.
I don't want the conflict.
Well, you don't want to make it bigger than it really is.
I don't know how you're going to react. I do. I know, again, the collective you. I think that's like
well, then
the
what's
big
the fear
thing.
under that, though? Because, okay, let's say I react negatively. Then there's more conflict instead of a solution. Which more conflict means it makes it worse, not better.
Potentially.
Making it worse eventually means things don't work out, right?
It's almost like there's the higher the conflict, the higher the communication has to be.
Yeah. And the higher the personal development of each individual has to be. I mean, we could talk relationships all day, but it really comes down to the level the other person plays at in terms of their emotional maturity and ownership and humility. Emilia, I talk about this often when we do Conscious Couples podcast, but also relationship talks. If it was me, and this is like, I'm serious about this. I want the listeners to hear this because it's the truth. If it was me, we would have ended up fighting. So we've gone 3.5 years without any fights, but that's not because of me. Part of it is because of me. And I obviously, right? But I told her, because I say that, and she's like, I don't understand what you're saying. Like, you are just as, amazing, blah, blah, blah. But you don't understand. Whenever I get to the point where I'm like getting frustrated and dialing up the tempo of the conversation, you are the one who is always so emotionally regulated that it never escalates. You're the one who de-escalates. She's the one who, like, in those tough moments, puts the relationship above herself. And for me, that's been harder. I don't think I'm terrible at it, but there's just no way that we could have gone 4 years without a single argument, or a single fight, I should say, without her. She's the one who's leading in that particular arena, just like I'm leading in the gym. I'm way more competent than she is in the gym. And for better or worse, the person who is more competent should lead. But to bring it back to this original episode, if your partner and you have trust 0 to 10, if you have trust at level 4 and you have, communication effectiveness at level 4, you only can have a level 4 relationship.
Yeah.
And you can only handle level 4 pressure, really. So in some ways, you're only going to be able to have a level 4 life. Either that or you're going to have to break up or build slowly over time. So hopefully that lands.
Yeah, I'm glad we did this one.
It was good.
I was thinking of something, like, I'm trying to think of, oh my goodness, my elbow. I tore the skin off my elbow doing boxing stuff, and now every time I touch it, it hurts me deeply. I was thinking of
manly man. I love it.
Yeah, simple but effective fundamentals under health, simple but effective fundamentals under wealth, simple but effective fundamentals under love.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of that the other day, and it's like, well, we haven't done an episode like this in a minute, and I think there's so many intricacies to this. Really. And again, we talked about this in the beginning. A relationship is the one thing where in the beginning is the easiest. You know why? Because there's far less to communicate. That's why.
Yeah, 100%.
There's far less. Everything's great. It's like, whatever. You leave your towel on the floor every once in a while. That's not that bad. That's not that big of a deal. And then 6 years later, it's like, oh my goodness, the towel's on the floor again. Oh my goodness. But I think it just
what does
builds.
This mean?
It builds over.
Yeah.
It builds over time.
Yeah.
It builds over time. So, yeah, I'm glad we did this. This is a big one. So I told Alan. Alan's like, "What are you going to talk about at the end of the episode?" And I said, "Dude, just trust me, man. I'm a pro. Trust me. This is what I want to talk about. If you are in a relationship and you are looking for support, you're looking for understanding, you're looking for lessons, stories, fundamentals, listen to the Conscious Couples podcast anywhere you find podcasts. Alan and Emilia, a wonderful podcast all about love and all the things you need to keep love going."
Aw, thanks, man.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
You see?
Thank you. Yeah, it's been one of my. I've learned more on the Conscious Couples podcast than anything else I've ever done, and the reason why is because I am alarmed at how little I really knew.
That's fair.
But it's helped me so much. I know it will help you as well. So thank you, Kev. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. How many episodes have you done?
66.
66 episodes.
Yep. As of
That's a lot.
Sunday night. Almost missed one. Emilia, dude, Sunday night happened. She's like, "Oh, we have to record." And I was like, "Oh my God, we have to record."
I think I saw it on your calendar at like 8 p.m. And I was like, why are you
Yeah.
recording podcast episode Sunday at 8 p.m.?
Last thing I wanted to do. Ended up being a really good episode, though,
I'm sure.
honestly. So what was I going to plug, man?
Group coaching. July 11th.
Oh my God, group coaching. Yeah, Jessie. So the amazing Jessie Brown, she is the host of Rewired to Inspire. And she came to very first group, Ambitious Army. This is over 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Holy crap.
At
2.5
least.
years ago.
I lived
She does.
in Mass still. So yeah, this was a minute ago.
Yeah. And well, it makes sense because there's 10 groups quarterly. So it's 2.5 years. So 2.5 years ago, Jessie Brown signs up for Group 1, Ambitious Army. Shout out to those of you listening if you were on Ambitious Army, the OG first group. And we tracked 12 habits, and it was this whole thing, and it was brand new, and we didn't know what we were doing really, but we made it work, and it was awesome. Jessie had a call with me after group coaching, and I ended up giving her some really challenging truths, and she was in a toxic relationship, XYZ. And she tells the story better than I do, but basically she went essentially away. She broke up with that partner. She moved apparently multiple times, she's told us since then. And then randomly she signs up for Group 7, Aspiration Nation. Every team has a team name. And then she crushes it in that group. So much, in fact, she comes on the team. Now she's the assistant coach, and she's been the assistant coach for Group 8, Group 9, and Group 10. And so the point I'm making here is that group coaching can change your whole life. It can change the way you think about yourself, about other people, about the world. If you're game, sign up. She signed up cold out of nowhere, and it changed her whole world. And the program is, again, we're iterating it constantly. This is going to be the 11th group. That's 11 different groups that we've learned how to improve the program. So, and Jessie will be there with you to hold your hand and to be there and support you every step of the way because she's been through this at this point 5 times for Group 11. So she's been through Group 1, group 7, 8, 9, and 10 at this point. So it's 56 days away. Go to the landing page. The link will be in the show notes. Check it out. Kevin and I have a video on there that expresses exactly what the program is. The verbiage is excellent. It's very affordable. Mm-hmm. We have a promo code for listeners of this show, 30% off. Email Kevin or myself, Alan@nextleveluniverse.com, Kevin@nextleveluniverse.com. Say, hey, I want to do group 11. Please give me the promo code. It comes to less than $100 a month for 3 months. So for less than $100 a month, it can potentially change your whole life. Now, I'm not guaranteeing what happened to Jesse will happen to you, but I can tell you what, it very much can. So I hope you join us.
Strong work.
Thank you, brother.
You're very welcome. Tomorrow for episode number 1341. How do you, Alan doesn't like this word, but it's just easier in the title. How do you balance gratitude in goals? Mm-hmm. I was on a podcast the other day and we were talking about this, and I don't know, I think this is something that people struggle with at a deeper level than I ever realized. So I figured, you know what? We talk about it a lot, but I don't know the last time we did an episode on it, so we're going to do a full episode on it. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Build trust and communicate. Next Level Nation.